welcome back to the Creative Shelf. You are joining me on a very hot day in Brussels. It's 27 Celsius, 80 Fahrenheit, something like that. But without further ado, I am back again with a midweek pop-up. It is my take on irreplaceable decks. Now, I saw this tag, and I know it's from Kelly in the Truth and Story, who I absolutely love. I think she's like the godmother of tarottribe kind of thing. But anyway, Kelly from the Truth and Story did this tag, and at first, I hadn't watched her video, to be very clear, originally. So I saw the tag and I thought, this is going to be like these really rare indie decks and decks that are out of print maybe, or something like that. And I just thought, I can't do this tag because I don't have that kind of a collection. But then I realized after I watched, I think it was Candy, Soul and Soil who did her version of the tag, that actually that's not what Kelly meant. And then I had to go back and basically just do my homework. So bear with me as I do my take on this tag. As usual, I will be listing and doing timestamps below, so you can just go straight to the deck, specifically a specific deck if you'd like to. And this is just like my take on it. And I'm pretty sure 1 year from now, if I did this tag again, some decks will be in there and some decks probably will be replaced and changed. The other disclaimer I have before I go further is just that this video is called Irreplaceable Decks, which is great, but just one thing is, for me personally, my journey is that I am connected to something before I even began tarot or anything. That's how I feel. And I have my kind of like spiritual and kind of how can I put it, psychic kind of like connections well before I went into tarot. And tarot for me is a wonderful tool. It's beautiful. I love it. You know, I love decks and all that kind of thing. But one thing I just wanted to kind of like say something that otherwise it wasn't going to be very genuine for me, is that for me tarot is not irreplaceable. It is actually replaceable. But I get where this tag is coming from, but just wanted to say that because it kind of like might sound like I can't live without these decks, and that's not true for me. It might be for some others, and that's up to them. It's just each their own path. But in my path, tarot is a tool, but it's not the only tool, and it's not the only way for me to connect with spirit. So hopefully those two disclaimers make sense. And so that's my intro, and I'm going to jump straight into the very first deck, which for me is irreplaceable in terms of the joy that I get from working with it. And it's kind of like becoming, now I see it now as kind of like my main deck. It's like my turn-to deck, and that's Tarot of the Sidhe. I really love this deck. I've only mid-modded it. It needs more modding. But I really love sitting with this deck. Since I started modding with it, I got to know her more and more. Then I worked with her a lot in the winter. I've currently kept her at bay in the summer. But it's almost like she says to me, why are you keeping me to the side? You know, that's my relationship with the Tarot of the Sidhe. I absolutely love Emily Carding's work. She's done also beautiful poetry in her guidebook. But this deck is just, it's just so, how can I put it? Like, I see her and I want to journey with her, and I want to be with her, and I want to spend time with her. And my idea is to get a second copy of the deck. So then this deck completely, I can just take off all the titles and all the other borders and just have the images on their own. And then I have one original spare as kind of like a backup, and it's in its original size and so forth. But I absolutely love this deck. It's just so energetically charged. There's something about this world that Emily Carding has created, which is kind of like, come join me. This deck really reads me well, and I really feel this energy of the Sidhe coming out of this deck. There's something about this spirit, you know, something that I would see more as Celtic spirit, that is very strong, questioning, but also nurturing, guiding, open. I love working with Fae energy overall. I'm kind of like a Fae, I think, myself. But I love working in this world. I love being invited into this world. I love that when I'm in this world, what it shows me, how it reflects whatever I'm feeling and thinking, how it helps me to really question my motives, gets me to think beyond my boundaries, pushes me out of my comfort zone, but it's also there for me when I need her. You know, when I need to be empowered, you know, here we have the Dreamer Queen, which is the Queen of Swords for this deck. You know, she really empowers me and helps me to say that, you know, that you need to think clearly on this one, or, you know, I need to be more grateful of all of the things that I receive from the earth. So it's a beautiful deck that I don't know how else to put it, but I feel like this is my world, you know, when I'm with this deck. And even when I'm not using her in a particular season, I will still get out this deck every now and then. And hold on a second, I've just dropped a card. I will get this deck out every now and then and go through it and look through it and just sit with her. You know, sometimes I just have her on my desk at the side. So yeah, this is just, you know, this is a deck that really has become not just part of my practice, but part of like, yeah, my journey with tarot. And so yeah, it's a beautiful deck, I think. So that's an irreplaceable deck for me. My other irreplaceable deck is one of my first decks. It's a Fae deck. I bought her in, I don't know, 2014 or 2015. I can't remember which year. And it's the Paulina Tarot. This deck is basically the deck that I really began my journey with. I learned the Rider-Waite-Smith from the original RWS Pamela Coleman Smith drawings, but this is the deck that really felt like, oh, it's a deck that understands me. You know, it's very feminine for me, very soft touch, but yet it has this darkness, you know, the darkness of that forest, and I love it. I can feel the shadows of the forest in this deck. I can feel this kind of like inner child and adult kind of like journey going on. I feel like these are beings that are coming to visit me and teach me something and show me. The Hierophant is one of my favorite all-time Hierophants in this deck. It's just an absolutely gorgeous deck, and I love Paulina Cassidy's artwork. I love her style. I sometimes am inspired to do my own artwork because of Paulina Cassidy. There's the Hierophant there. You know, when I go running in the woods, and you know, and when I even stand next to trees and just, you know, absorbing that energy, this is the kind of thing, you know, that I feel like, you know, the trees are wisdom. They're my leader. They're my guidance. I go to them to show me, you know, to educate me and to help me understand the doorway between, you know, earth and the realm, basically the spirit realm. And you can see here all these little beings that are underneath, you know, learning from this magnificent Hierophant that is illuminating and guiding them and showing them the way. And all these forest creatures are welcome. Everyone's welcome. And that's why I just love Paulina Cassidy's work. She just captures the essence of each of the keys so well. She does it in her own way. I think her drawings are just so full of just these beautiful, exquisite details. And you know, this is a deck where whatever I've read with it for someone or for myself, each time the cards are showing me something that I haven't seen before, and I pick up something, and I think that's gorgeous. And yeah, I mean, look at this world card. So yeah, so this is Paulina Cassidy's Paulina Tarot. Equally, her Joie de Vivre, her Phantasma are gorgeous tarot decks too. Her Spirit Song. So if you're ever in doubt, I would recommend at least getting one Paulina deck and trying it. If you want a lighter version, I would suggest the Joie de Vivre, and I am quite sure that I will be doing a comparison of all of her tarot decks at some point on the channel, side by side. So okay, so that's the Paulina Tarot. Going on from there, here is a tarot deck that I picked up when I came back to tarot in 2020. It's the Crow Tarot by MJ Cullinan, and MJ Cullinan's work for me is irreplaceable. I picked the Crow because that's the deck that I first picked up of hers. I now have her Foraxa as well. I will be getting Guardians of the Night very soon. But I really love this deck, and because I spend a lot of time in the woods and I love the Crow energy, for me this is irreplaceable. I feel that this connection, not just to the Morrigan, but this guidance with the Crow, that, you know, being in an urban city and being in urban city parks, this captures that essence so well of nature, but urbanized nature, and cloaked sometimes in kind of like, you know, the I mean, look at that Hierophant. but just sometimes cloaked between buildings and the more harsher landscapes. There is a magnificence of this crow energy which I've never seen before in a deck. You know, I've never seen this before in an animal deck. There is something about there's a power here that I'm tapping into. And it's a witty deck, it's funny. She makes me smile, she makes me sad. You know, I cannot believe that just through one animal, one being, through this collage art, I feel the essence of all of these emotions. And I just think, I mean, look at that hermit card, just, it's stunning artwork for me. And I think that she's done an amazing job with this deck. This is the US Games version. I know it was originally an indie deck. I think the US Games version is gorgeous. I decided to keep all of the borders. I like it is. I need to edge mine, that's the only thing. But yeah, I just really love this deck. And I bring her out in the autumn. You know, this is a firm kind of like from Samhain onwards, even from like, you know, when we have the autumn equinox, from then onwards, you know, this deck is just like a fan favorite, and she starts to appear again everywhere. And as I'm looking through her for this video, I'm thinking, you know, I can't wait actually till Samhain. And usually I would never say that because I love the summer, but when I'm looking at this deck, I'm like, actually, I'm missing her already. So really glad to have this in my collection. It's a fan favorite, and she's irreplaceable for me. You know, I've got the 4-axe as well, and I love that deck. I mean, it was hard. I didn't know which one to pick actually for this video, so I picked the crow. But yeah, I equally love the 4-axe actually as well. So they're both irreplaceable for me. Going on from there, sticking with that autumnal theme, I wanted to show you the Hush Tarot. Now, this is pre-existing artwork that was placed onto a tarot deck. And honestly speaking, I initially did struggle with it. But I kind of like stopped trying to make her something that she's not. And then the whole deck changed for me. I love Jeremy Hush's work. I think he's done an amazing job with this artwork. I read her more intuitively rather than, you know, this is the 5 of swords. I don't really read it as that. You know, I read it more intuitively, as I mentioned. You know, this is the Hierophant. The reason why this deck is so unusual for me is because through these drawings, there was a mistake in the guidebook with this card. So I'm just going to say that it's a big mistake as well. But through these drawings specifically, it's the first time where I saw artwork which conveys death and decay and beauty also well. It's like this mingle of, there's a slight edge, there's like things that are breaking down, there is a fear in here for me. There's the you know, hidden, something's hidden and looking for it, and sometimes there is this feeling of morbidity. Actually, that's the word I was looking for, morbidity. But it does it so well. It does morbidity, beauty, melancholy, and decay so well. I don't know how else to put it. It's a fabulous art. I should bring them closer, sorry. It's fabulous art, and this is again the US Games production. And I also like the fact that we have these borders, but they're not quite borders, but they're there. Yeah, I look at this rooster here. I mean, just, that's the card I'm working with quite a lot this year, the rooster. But yeah, I just think that there is something about this deck which is just unusual. And if I keep her intuitive, this deck just opens so many worlds for me, and so many thoughts and meanings, and I get so much kind of like thinking that happens in my head just when I've got some of these cards laid out. She works so beautifully also with other decks. So yeah, this is really a very unusual deck for me in many ways, and the art just blows me away. I edged mine, and these are the backs, and I do follow Jeremy Hush on Instagram, and you know, I've actually said to him, you know, will we be seeing more of his artwork? Will we be seeing, sorry, I've just dropped more cards again. Will we be seeing more of his beautiful artwork? Because it is just so unusual, you know. So I'm hoping he does an oracle, he does another tarot deck. because I use this very much as an intuitive deck. It's just, you know, for me, it's fine if I just had another tarot deck. It would be 78 beautiful images for me to work with. So in case Jeremy Hush is watching, I would encourage more decks, please. I'll definitely be snapping one up if it's made. And you know, this is also the kind of artwork where even if it was made indie and I had to buy it at a higher price point, I would, because I just love his art so much. Okay, going on from there, I'm going to now start showing some, oh no, wait, let me just finish off first of all with some of my more mass market tarot decks. This is the Star Tarot. Now the reason why I picked this deck, and I still haven't worked with it, but I have gone through it once. And the reason why I had to include it in here when I was looking through all my collection was, for me, this is really a Golden Dawn deck. It's not so much RWS, it's more Golden Dawn, and it straddles both that the RWS and the Thoth. And I think that the artwork in this deck is just amazing. Now, one thing I think this is, I just want to check the production. I think it's Red Feather. The gilding in this deck is not superb, but I don't want to get rid of the gilding, so I'm in a battle with it. I think silver gilding would have been better, but okay. The images are just, the artwork again is what's stunning in this deck. It's just beautiful. I've not seen this in another tarot deck. I think the closest I've got to it is the Gilded Tarot, which I also like as well. I've got that one. Also very Thoth, so I love it. But this is really Golden Dawn for me. And it's, for me, Golden Dawn, there's something about also the facial expressions and the body postures, the geometric designs coming through. It's very unusual. I love it. And I think that this is one of the rare times where it's been captured very well, because we don't have many Golden Dawn decks. So this for me is just captured really, really well. Yeah, there is something about the spirit of tarot which I see coming through in this deck, and I don't see it so easily replaced via what a fabulous devil card. I don't see it very easily. I don't see it being replaceable, basically. I mean, it's a tarot deck, and you might say, well, this is RWS, or you can use a Thoth deck, but this for me is just, it's a really good blend of the two, this Golden Dawn system. And, you know, and she's clever, you know, she's bringing in elements, these very shamanic elements in here, very, sometimes, you know, Wheel of the Year elements. I mean, the pips in this deck are just, look at the aces, just amazing. I think, yeah, the deck is still in order, of course, so I just realised that. I mean, just, yeah, I find this imagery very difficult to I've not seen it in any other way, and you know, and I'm actually saving this deck for something later this year, and I think that's when it's really going to be a key deck for me as I later on this year. It's also, I think, a beautiful deck to use around that winter period, because the way that the imagery is with that dark and then those beautiful colors, it really pops. So yeah, definitely for me, an end of year deck in terms of the season, but also irreplaceable in terms of its exquisite artwork. And finally, not finally, actually, more mass market decks. This is a deck which has been has brought tears to my eyes, because it is just so, not just beautiful, but it's forest energy. It's just so loving and kind. It's Forest of Enchantment by Linnea Weatherstone and Marilia Alwood. I'm sorry, Linnea. I'm so sorry. I love Linnea Weatherstone's writing, her guidebook, and this is irreplaceable. This deck, I think, is a must-have if you like these kind of decks. Yeah, there's a bit of a prerequisite, but this deck is just enchanting. It's the Forest of Enchantment, and it's enchanting. I feel like I'm in a magical world where my childlike self is safe, where I can start to really look at those inner demons, where I'm protected, where I can talk about all my wishes and dreams, where I can be the woman I want to be. It's just a deck of just storytelling and comfort and laughter and joy, but also sorrow and nurturing. And you know, these cards, these images are portals for me. They're portals to a realm of just being able to ask, you know, like, you know, when I'm here with the Weaver of Challenges, you know, when I'm in that space of feeling very cold and meeting this kind of like an archetype, which I think is a little bit scary for me, and seeing, you know, am I going to be able to trust, you know, in this energy, in this Queen of Swords, you know, or sitting here with this, you know, this is the Ten of Pentacles, you know, sitting on this table and enjoying this beautiful feast. I mean, what a beautiful way to show the Ten of Pentacles. You know, this is the Council, so this is the Judgment card. I just find this deck so magical. This card actually, this is their Three of Swords. This card, so it's kind of like the Hansel and Gretel, and he's leaving behind the kids in the woods. You know, this is for me, you know, making painful decisions, and our hearts broken, but is what he thinks is going to be the right thing to do. You know, this is the stuff that just really brought up so much deep wounds for me and helped me heal. And I'm still healing, but, you know, it's helped me to look at things of like, you know, yeah, you know, when we don't have our family and having to cope with that as children, if we don't have parents and stuff like that. So this deck is just gorgeous in so many ways of just allowing me to go back to that magical world that I had as a child. You know, this is my child world, but now as a runner in the woods and a lover of the woods, it's combining me with my adult self as well. So it's just it's a deck that just, you know, it's a deck that I think even when I'm like in my 50s and my 60s, I think I'm still gonna love, and I think that's irreplaceable. So yeah, and just, you know, you know, I've had moments where I've been sitting, you know, in the woods wishing upon a star, you know, with a friend, you know, and we go and do our little pagan rituals in the park kind of thing. And, you know, and this is the magic of that kind of life. And I think that Linnea Weatherston and Marilia Alwood captured that so well. And so, yeah, this is an irreplaceable deck for me, for sure. Equally, it was very hard for me to do this. The Everyday Witch, which I'm not going to go through, she's back here. The Everyday Witch also is basically in this energy field as well. So these are decks that let me play and let me explore themes in a safe way, which I find difficult, you know, otherwise. I find difficult sometimes to look at that. But yeah, so that's why these decks are on this list. Okay, and then finally, this is finally now my last mass market tarot deck is the Dreamkeeper's Tarot. And now this is a deck that I bought last year, but I used for the first time in January this year. And I first and foremost come from astrology, which is why I made that big disclaimer at the beginning that my connection is not always via tarot. I first and foremost am connected with the universe and the planets. They're my connection, really. So I bought this deck. I first whizzed through it. I didn't think much of it. And then I worked with it in January and using the guidebook, and I was blown away. This guidebook is phenomenal. Liz Houston has done an amazing job. I think it's a very underrated deck. I think if you want to explore astrology and tarot, this is a must-have. I very rarely say that on videos, like you must have this deck kind of thing, because, you know, I don't want to encourage people to feel like they've gone in a FOMO mode or I have to now go out and buy something. I don't really encourage that kind of thing. But I hear a lot of people saying, you know, teach us the astrology, because that's like my more like my meat area is the planets. But you know, Liz Houston has done a phenomenal job. And if you want to cross mythology, planetary energy and tarot, go get this deck basically. So these are the backs of the US Games version. Just as a quick side note, because it's back there, Nancy from Paper Moon Tarot has also given me her indie version. And technically speaking, let's see if I can find it now, it's in there somewhere. Technically speaking, that's the irreplaceable deck, because it's the indie version and it's a gift from Nancy. So there you go. So that's why for me it's irreplaceable, because yeah, that's all very special to me. I'm showing you the mass market version for today, because then you see what you're getting if you want to buy it. there's no other way to put it. It's a very clever deck. Very clever. Liz Houston has done an amazing job. She spent 10 years doing this deck. It gives me the creeps as well sometimes. Like cards like this remind me of the film The Others with Nicole Kidman. So, you know, this deck gives me the creeps as well at times. I love it. I can't wait till winter where I'm going to work with this deck again because she's coming out. This is one of my, I mean, you know, it's a mass market, so it is technically I can go out and buy another copy. But this is one of those decks where, yeah, if the building was burning, I'd have the cat in one hand. And, you know, this would be one of the decks that I'm trying to run with as I try and escape kind of thing. I just love it. It's just such a great deck. It's such a great set of imagery. The more I worked with it, the more I realized just it's clever. There's no other way to put it. She makes me work. She makes me think. She makes me sit there going, huh? And she makes me realize, so that's why Liz did things that way, you know. Okay, now I get it. Yeah, I love this deck. There's no other way to put it. It's one of my favorite decks, one of my all-time favorite decks. If we had that top 10 decks, if I could only keep top 10 decks with Katie Flowers, you know, the one that she did last year, which, you know, has been a huge hit, that would, you know, this deck would definitely be now in my top 10. It's just gorgeous. So yeah, Liz Houston took me on a journey when I used this deck in January. And I remember at the end of January, I didn't want to put it away. I was like, I don't want to put this deck away because I just love it so much. So when a deck does that, you know, that's when you just know that it's gold. It's gold. It's a golden nugget. It sits there with my Paulina, and it sits there with my Tarot of the She kind of thing. You know, it's in one of those top realms. Yeah, I mean, some creators really knock it out of the park. FYI, this is the star card in the deck, which is Kyra and the Wounded Healer. I mean, she's clever. She's clever. Okay, so now we're going to do a bit of a departure, and we're going to go into some of my indie decks, which are irreplaceable to me for several reasons. One, they are a bit pricey for me to buy. Two, I think they're very unusual and quirky and cool. And three, yeah, they make me happy. They click. We click. What more can I say? Straight off the bat is a deck that came in my, it came in my mailbox. It didn't come in my mailbox. It actually ended up at the post office where I have to go and retrieve it because it's something that I need to sign for, blah, 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 because, you know, I've ordered internationally, blah, blah, blah. My Trionfi Della Luna illustrated pips. I have the Trionfi Della Luna pips, the Marseilles version in Paradoxical Purple. I've never shown it on the channel. I like the deck. I really, really like the deck. It means a lot to me. But this one is the one I love. So there you go. Now, I love the Deviant Moon Tarot. So the sister deck, the mass market Deviant Moon. But then I got this. And you know, and we've not parted company since. I love this deck. I think Patrick Valenza's just knocked it out of the park with his illustrations. I think he's a very, very clever, this is another extra card. So these are the backs. If you buy from Patrick Valenza, from his shop, of course, you know that these decks come with extra cards. Now, just for people living in the EU, he has his website, but he has also an Etsy shop, and buying from the Etsy will work out cheaper. I won't go into the whole rigmarole, but it does work out cheaper. You might see something on his website which is not in the Etsy shop, and I can't remember if it was him or someone else, but this is a tip. If it's not in their Etsy shop, but it's on their website, but we need to buy from the Etsy to make it cheaper for us, for the EU people I'm talking about, you can perhaps reach out to the seller, the artist, and ask if they will do a bespoke sale for us, so that we actually can get it like slightly reduced, because the additional cost if we don't buy from Etsy but we buy from their website is administrative. So just a tip. Hopefully that makes sense. These are the backs. This is the deck. I mean, he's clever. He's clever with body postures. He's clever with legs. And I mean, he's just clever. You've got, I mean, each of these cards is full of imagery that, you know, I mean, people see the vulgar kind of like the naughty, deviant side, which is definitely there. I mean, it's a little bit, it is deviant. But then there comes another layer, and the layer is more about what we see underneath, the subtleties. You know, I mean, look at this Four of Cups. You've got this little ghost-like creature coming and offering, and I love the way he's used the colors of the Marseilles in here. He's just a very clever artist. This is the kind of deck where, you know, in a spread, it is just phenomenal. What you will see with people facing each other, you know, he really captures Marseille well. And then, of course, he's brought the RWS element of illustrating all the pips. So, I mean, I think he's a genius in many ways. I'm tempted to get the aquadoxical, so the paradoxical version, but in aqua color of this deck, because I love this so much. So I think I'm going to go, and it's going to be a bit of a splurge, but definitely worth it. And I might get one of his oracles while I'm there too, because I do enjoy his artwork. It's very different, it's very kooky. It's decks that I use more in autumn and winter, so that's why you're not seeing them on my Insta right now. On Insta I post a lot what I'm using, but I do think that this is a great deck for me to have in my arsenal. And like I said, you know, I think I'm going to go and splurge and get the aqua paradoxical version too. One thing to note about his decks, just as a sideline, that I have noticed is they are extremely slippery. And I've noticed that with also the MJ Cullinan indie version of her deck as well, her Foraxa. It's extremely slippery to the point where it is difficult to work with. So I have no idea how they're producing them, but that is one disclaimer that I have with this particular deck too, because it will literally just fly out of my hand, and that's difficult, you know, and I don't want to damage an indie deck, you know, especially an international indie deck, which you can imagine can get very pricey if I damaged it. So, but there are only 500 copies of this. It's a limited print run. If you're in the, I mean, you know, if you're interested in his work, I personally think it's worth getting, but that's me. If you don't want to make that splurge because it is going to be expensive, I would definitely recommend starting off with the Deviant Moon, which is a US Games deck of his, and that at least is a price point of less than 20 euros, so it's quite affordable. Okay, going on from there, let me show you another indie deck that I bought in the winter last year, and I've never shown it on the channel because I'm still trying to kind of like bond with it, but I've got the book as well by the creator, and that is my Robert M. Plas, the Alchemical Tarot of Marseille. So he's basically taken the Marseille and illustrated it, similar to the Trionfi Della Luna illustrated pips. Now, I love this deck. I also have his Alchemical Tarot Magnus Opie, the reduced version. I also have his Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery. But this is the one that stole my heart, and I don't know why. I think it's just a click. I don't know why it was this deck, but this deck, I saw it on Ren's channel, you know, Ren, W-R-E-N. She has exquisite taste in tarot decks. I mean, I watched one of Ren's videos and it's like, okay, well, there goes my purse, there goes my wallet. So there's a couple of other decks that she has also that I would like to get as investment. But this one she had in her only 10 decks video, I think. And because I saw this deck, and as she's showing it, I'm like, I need to have this deck. I need to have this deck. So I love the symbols used. As somebody that loves astrology, for me, the Robert M. Plas placement of all the right signs, the wording, the imagery, it's just so perfect. The mythology, I just love it. I love the colors. I love the production quality of this deck. I'm so glad I scooped it up. I actually managed, if you're interested, I managed to get it from Tarot NL. They had several Robert M. Plas decks. I still think they've got the Magnus Opie. I think they're restocking them as they go. It is cheaper to buy from there, because from the independent boutique here in the EU, than to buy from Robert M. Plas, just as an FYI, is much cheaper. So that's where I got it from. And I have no regrets buying this deck. I just fell in love with it. I mean, it is a Marseille deck, but you've got these small little illustrations here. They're clever. They make me smile. Of course, you know, they have a very strong mythological astrology components to them. They have a lot of kind of like storytelling in them. Yeah, I mean, 5 of Cups, I mean, the broken egg, you know. So loss, but also something coming through, you know. He's just clever. I mean, look at his devil card. Yeah, I love his art, and he who has attached himself to demons becomes like the demon. I mean, just poetry, you know, for me, poetry. And the devil is my favorite major arcana card. So yeah, actually the devil in his Magnus Opus is the reason why I bought that deck as well. So I love both of them. I like his Sevenfold Mystery less. Now, I have read his literature. I have some mixed feelings about his literature, which I won't go into in this video. I don't quite think, as a historian myself, I don't quite agree to his approaches sometimes when in his writings. But so therefore, my view of his books is to take them with a grain of salt. I don't think that we fully have an accurate historical perspective personally. But his decks are fun. They are cool. You know, they're unusual. And I love them, you know. A deck that I don't have right now, which I'm going to get, is one from the Italian producer Ilmengo. I can't pronounce his name. I can't pronounce his name now. It's gone from my head. You know the one I'm talking about. I want to get a deck from them, and I'm just thinking, sorry, which one I want to get from them. The Solar Busca right now is, I think, selling for around 110 euros on the website. But it's something I'm saving up for. But definitely would like to get a deck from there. But I'm so glad that I have this Robert M. Plass deck. And I mean, look at this Papess. You know, she just looks so seductive and so innocent and coy. Who is it that has confined the sea within its bounds? You know, just. Yeah, I mean, he just captures the essence of the Marseilles so well in this deck. And then, of course, we have the illustrated pips. So, yeah. So that is the Alchemical Tarot of Marseille by Robert M. Plass. And definitely one of my favorite decks of his. I know that the Buddha Tarot is now available mass market, but I think it's around 50 euros. And, yeah, I'm not ready to pay for that price right now. I'm hoping it drops in price. Going on from there, let me go on to... another indie deck that I bought, and I bought it in, I think it was already the winter, and that is my Jenny of the Sacred Bee. Now I have the Oracle and the Tarot. I'm going to show you the Tarot in this one, but the Oracle as well I love just as equally. This deck is very unique for me because I feel like it's a riot of color that I see nowhere else. It is exquisite craftsmanship in terms of quality of production. And finally, it's the bee. And these are the backs. And the bee for me is a connection to Capricorn, and that's my mother's sign. And I'm very connected in that way. It's very important to me. It's sentimental. So it's a maternal thing for me, I think. The bee is a very maternal energy for me. So I find this deck is just irreplaceable. I think the artwork is just so... I mean, I think more and more we're seeing this artwork in tarot decks, but I personally love the way she's done it. And yeah, and I really like, you know, again, the astrology, the links to the astrology there, the links to the letters, the Hebrew letters. Very clever deck, and a lot of imagery to sit with. This deck also works so well with other tarot collage decks. So I really appreciate decks which are harmonious with other decks. I like to do that a lot. I like to mix them up and do big spreads, and I love this deck in that sense, you know. So for me, these are unusual. I have absolutely no regrets getting them. I remember when I bought them initially, because they are so pricey, I thought, oh, is that worth it? Should I have done that? And now, you know, after 6 months of having it, it's like, oh, I love this deck actually. I'm so glad I got it. And, you know, and in terms of creating and having a collection of for myself, you know, I think it's worth sometimes for me to just save up and not get those, get lots of mass market, sometimes just to save up for that one indie deck. Another deck that I got around the winter time, which has really got me thinking a lot, is my Cosma Visions Oracle. Now, I see this also as a tarot deck, to be very honest with you. But this deck has got me thinking a lot. I haven't really worked as it as a tarot deck. I'm more kind of like just looking at the images as they are. So it's all in order. I mean, I'm just really just observing the deck right now and just really taking a step back and looking at it. And I've just dropped the first card. Hold on a second. So this deck for me is like, again, it's a bit like the Sacred Bee. The colors are just phenomenal. And James R. Eads, his work is just so unusual. I mean, maybe we have more like this now, but I find his art just so unusual. If you are on the fence about getting this deck, I just so recommend it. And I love kind of like, you know, the cosmic tree. I love his kind of like his major arcana. It's an oracle, but I love his first 20 cards in here. The maze. You know, I don't see this very often. And yeah, it's a very intuitive deck. I actually wish that the one thing I wish is his major arcana didn't have this border, even though it's beautiful. I wish it was the same as the minors in this deck, because the minors, again, they had that panoramic feature where you lay them all out. Just so gorgeous. Yeah, it's one of those, it's like a wonderland deck where I go in, it's pathworking, it's journeying, it's this is the kind of imagery that, especially around Christmas and when it's dark, I need this because it's light flooding into my senses, you know, in a different way. And I just, yeah, I really, really love this deck, but I haven't worked with it enough, so I can't do a real proper review of it. But, you know, is it replaceable? No. Now, I have also his Prisma Visions, and just as an FYI, I've just ordered, I managed to get hold of it, his Light Visions. So the Prisma Visions and the Light Visions are twins. They're just, one is in sepia and one is in color. And I couldn't get hold of the Light Visions before, but then I found it in an indie deck seller here, a boutique here. So I've just managed to order it in, and I'm so glad I'm going to have the whole set. I don't have his coins. If anybody has his coins, let me know. I'm not sure if I want to purchase them. I find them very, very pricey, and I'm just very careful to not buy things which I don't use, which still happens. But with the coins, there's a big hesitancy of whether or not I really will make use of them. So I'm not sure if it's worth the purchase for me. Okay, and I think this is my final indie tarot deck. And this is a new one. This is the She-Wolf. I've been wanting this deck for at least, I don't know, 18 months. And I finally got it just about a month ago by Devani Wolfe. I bought it again from a boutique seller here. And so I haven't really worked with the deck that much, but just no. First of all, the reason why I wanted this deck, it's not because it's like Thoth inspired. It's not because of its female bodies and all of this kind of thing. Really, it's going to sound so sad when I say this. It's because it's like, it's the color. It's this pink. I'm like a pink girl. So a pink deck. I mean, yeah, I know. I have the same issue with a Star Child, which I have as well. But I just wanted to show one of this cosmic big theme decks. I love its oracle size. I love this big imagery. I love this female energy in it. I love the backs. I like the backs of the previous version too. I really appreciate that the creator took on board the feedback of needing more diversity in terms of body images. So now we have more women of color. We have now more women of different body shapes and sizes. I really, really embrace it. There's a card in here. I can't remember which one. Again, there's a woman with a mastectomy, which for me is a very sensitive issue. It's very personal. So I'm so glad. I love the curvaceousness of the ladies in this deck, this feminine energy. Just, yeah, it's, you know, I love this kind of like very 70s style kind of retro image. The Eight of Wands in this deck, let me see if I can get to it quicker. The Eight of Wands in this deck is just, it's one of the reasons again why I wanted this deck. I mean, yes, there are times I want a deck just because of one or two cards. Look at that. My head just goes, love it. Yeah. If you're someone that loves fashion, I mean, come on. I mean, there's no other ways to think about it. I'm less into the whole, this is Egyptian and this is the Thoth and so forth, because I'm very picky about that. I think because of my historical studies and so forth, you know, because it's just, we're so drilled into seeing history with so many checks and balances that, you know, for me, I'd start to point out all the inaccuracies. So I have to, in a way, just take that out of my head when I look at decks, and then I can enjoy them and I can stop trying to, you know, pick at them, which can happen. And then I can enjoy them. And I really think this is a beautiful deck. I think it's going to be great for journaling and just sitting with one or two cards and really asking myself, what do I see? I'd love to pair this with an oracle or two. So I've got some oracles that I've got in mind that I'm going to order. I think they will go well with this deck. They'll also equally go well with the Star Child and the Moon Child. I haven't bought the Moon Child yet. And the reason why I haven't bought the Moon Child is because, and this is the big disclaimer, there's a Moon Child Gothic coming out and I want to get the Gothic one. But now I'm thinking, should I get the Moon Child standard anyway and then get the Gothic? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if they're going to be the same or similar or very different. So that's why there's a bit of like, what do I do? But I'm tempted to get the Moon Child because there's something about those purples that I just absolutely adore. Okay, so we're now 46 minutes in. So I'm going to just really be quick with a couple of oracle decks that to me are just irreplaceable because of my connection with them, and it's a personal thing. My Goddess Love and my Goddess Dream are always going to be irreplaceable because I just feel so deeply connected to these images. Wendy Andrew, please do more decks because I love them and I will buy them. Yeah, they're very personal to me. I use them all year round. You know, when these start to wear out, I'll buy more copies because I just, you know, I'll just use them so much. I still do. I mean, these are decks that I use nearly every day or every other day. They're very close to me, and I just love this beautiful Wheel of the Year, folk energy, fate energy, loving, kind, compassionate energy that I get from these decks. Quickly here, a fairy oracle, but anything by with Arthur Rackham's work is for me irreplaceable. I think the same could be said with John Bower and the John Dulac work. I love their works. I love that haunting Victorian imagery, similar vein to the Hush Tarot. I love this haunting feeling that I'm getting. In these decks, they scare the bejesus out of me. I mean, I'm a kid that grew up, one of the places I lived when I was younger was a mansion. And so we had wallpaper like this. So for me, this kind of imagery just really brings me back to my childhood, which had creepy bits in it. But it just does. It's irreplaceable. I want to get again the John Dulac and the the Dulac and the John Bower decks. I have the tarot of this as well. I'm just showing you the oracle because it's bigger images, but they both are irreplaceable to me. But I love this very haunting feeling. The tarot deck, interestingly for me, is very London, 19th century. So if you want that Whitechapel feel, and those of you who know what I'm talking about when I say Whitechapel, if you want Whitechapel, 19th century, get the Arthur Rackham tarot deck. You won't be, you will be pleasantly taken on a journey. Let me see if I've got it right here actually, or maybe it's somewhere else. I think it's tucked in back here somewhere. I don't think I can get hold of it as quickly as I'd like to now. Sadly, so I'm sorry. It's in there somewhere, but my Arthur Rackham tarot deck, if you want me to do a video on that specifically, that I can do because that's an easy one for me. Okay, and then finally, a deck which I wanted to bring out because I can't get rid of it. So I guess it's irreplaceable, but I can't get rid of it. It's a Ciro Marchetti deck, and his Gilded Royale was one of my first decks, But this deck, just, I love it. It's his Lenormand. And the reason why it's irreplaceable is I think his artwork in this deck, I mean, I need to get maybe one of his indie new ones. I think that will challenge me again. But there's something about the artwork in this Lenormand which I'm mesmerized by. I mean, that's gorgeous. I mean, there's something about the color, the finish and the shine on these decks. Let me show you one of, I mean, there's not many cards anyway, it's a Lenormand. But there's a card in here which was just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, just his artwork in this deck is just, look at the detail on that. That's mesmerizing. This Lenormand has got to be one of my favorite Lenormands ever. This is the card. Here it is. I think it's the birdhouse. I mean, that's just beautiful. So yeah, I think I might try one of his new indie decks, because I think that's where this is the level he's taken it to, basically. And you know, it's come far from his Gilded Royale. I can't remember what it's called. And I really, really love the artwork in this deck. So the only thing I don't like about his decks are the humans in his deck. Sometimes, not all of them, but sometimes I don't like the humans in his deck. So that's where I have like a bit of a struggle. But yeah, so I'm going to stop there because we're 15 minutes in, so this is a bit of a long video. But this is my take on irreplaceable decks. Big FYI, 3 decks which are not irreplaceable, but I should have put this right at the beginning. Another disclaimer is, of course, the RWS Classic, the Pamela Coleman-Smith deck, the Thoth, and the Tarot de Marseilles, like the Nicholas Conver version or something. Absolutely irreplaceable, because of course those are our source decks. I say our because it's a community here. I believe those are our source decks. I believe a really good tarot reader, sounds harsh, but one really needs to know their original decks. At least work with them a little bit, get to know them, even if they're not for you, to at least understand and be familiar with that system, even if it's not the right imagery for a person, because I do believe in the true roots of tarot in that sense. So I'm going to stop right there. It's beautiful evening. I think it's going to be a nice light dinner and an ice cream and a stroll outside with a friend. I will see you all at the weekend. Take care now. Bye.